What's good, baby? It's your partner looking so much better than you. You see that thing? Take that picture. But y'all know what time it is. It's Thursday. It's 8:30 p.m. It's time for that counter move, guys. Let's get it in, guys. Let's go.
Where we are here to help entrepreneurs either start business or grow your already existing business. I'm here with an entrepreneur guru, my friend Liddell.
Typically, tangible assets hold their value versus non-tangible assets. I'm not against stocks at all, period. I just like for my money to be backed by something that's tangible, physical, that I can go see it and feel it's mine.
What's good, y'all? It's your partner, and it's that counter move again, guys. And today we're going to continue our non-biased, non-political discussion concerning energy for fossil fuels and green energy and renewable energies as well. And so today, guys, we're going to talk about you hear the word transition given by the Biden administration. So the natural question to that is transition to what? So today we're going to unpack what that looks like. So I'm going to give you a lot of information in video format, guys. I think it's wiser to listen to video from a non-biased point of views. Then we can kind of lean in and reason together and begin to unpack this a little bit more. Again, this is not a political discussion. This is a common sense discussion. It's a reasoning discussion. So, guys, let's lean in. Let's learn more. So, let's do a quick recap, guys, on where we are right now. Let's look at candidate Biden. Let's recap real quickly what candidate Biden communicated on the campaign trail. Okay, guys, here we go. I did a quick 45 second, I'm sorry, to a minute, kind of a snapshot of this. So let's look at it and see exactly what candidate Biden actually said from a recap perspective on the campaign trail. Here we go.
Any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated. No more drilling on federal lands. No more drilling, including offshore. No ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel.
What about, say, stopping fracking and stopping new pipeline infrastructure?
Exactly. No new fracking.
We are going to get rid of fossil fuels.
I've argued against any more oil drilling or gas drilling on federal lands.
No one's going to build a coal-fired plant again, and we're going to get rid of the ones we have now.
Have a transition from the oil industry, yes.
Would you be willing to sacrifice some of that growth, even knowing potentially that it could displace thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of blue-collar workers in the interest of transitioning to that greener economy?
The answer is yes.
Candidate. So, guys, it's very easy to see that candidate Biden on the campaign trail was very clear of his intentions of what he wanted to do. He was immensely clear. I got to give him to him on that one, okay? Now, he's now president. Now, let's recap very, very succinctly at what the current Biden administration is actually saying concerning what their intention is to do, what they wanted to do, okay? Let's see here. Let's go ahead and recap that very quickly, okay? Very quickly, because we're going to get in, get out very quickly. Here we go.
What is the Biden plan to jumpstart energy production across America?
Here's the Biden plan. I'm here at Glasgow. The Biden plan is to diversify and to make sure that we move in a direction of clean energy where we're not reliant upon cartels and we're not reliant upon geopolitical adversaries who may be creating choke points for our ability and our people to be able to access energy. So that's obviously a longer term strategy, and we will continue. This is why this is called a transition.
Right.
Let's just say that it is clear that the Biden administration believes we have to move away from fossil fuels and coal.
What he committed. All right, guys, it's very clear what the administration has been since President Biden has been sworn into office. Their intention is to transition. You hear the word transition, okay? So their clear intention is to transition completely away from fossil fuels and coal over to green energy or renewable energy. That is their clear intention. And to be honest with you, concerning the intention, they've been actually executing that plan fairly flawlessly. So really, promises made, promises kept. We got to keep it 1,000 with you guys, okay? So now I thought it'd be wise, now that we understand what Kennedy Biden's actually said, and that Kennedy Biden's intentions is now reflective in the intention as well as the actions of the Biden administration now on transitioning away from fossil fuels and coal to renewable and or green energy. I thought it'd be wise for us to begin to answer this question. Well, what is green/renewable energy? There's been a lot of verbiage about what this is. And I thought it'd be wise, again, from a definition standpoint, to go to a to video format to kind of describe this. This is National Geographic. They're going to unpack what this is. I'm going to start and stop it real quickly because of copyright reasons, but I think they give a clear definition of what green energy is. Okay, so let's get it going. Here we go.
Around the world, renewable energy use is on the rise. And these alternative energy sources could hold the key to combating climate change. What is renewable energy? Renewable energy is generated from sources that naturally replenish themselves and never run out. The most common sources are solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, and biomass.
As you can see, guys, that's clearly different than what fossil fuels is. Let's keep going.
80% of the total energy consumed by humans is derived from fossil fuels. However, renewables are the fastest growing source of energy in the world. Renewable energy has many benefits. First, it can combat climate change because it creates no direct greenhouse gas emissions. The only emissions that they produce are indirect, meaning those that result from manufacturing parts, installation, operation, and maintenance. But even those are minimal.
Now they're giving the benefits of renewable and green energy, and they're unpacking why it's beneficial. Let's go.
Second, renewable energy can decrease pollution and therefore reduce threats to our health. Wind, solar, and hydroelectric systems create no air pollution emissions, and geothermal and biomass energy systems emissions are much lower than non-renewable energy sources. Third, renewable energy is a reliable source of power. Because renewable energy sources are, well, renewable, they will never run out. Once built, renewable facilities cost very little to operate, and the fuel is often free. As a result, renewable energy prices tend to be stable over time. While renewable energy has many advantages, it is not without downsides. It is difficult for renewable energy sources to generate power on the same large scale as fossil fuels. Building wind farms and dams can disrupt wildlife and migration patterns and lead to ecological destruction. Both solar and wind energy are intermittent. They only generate power while the sun is shining or while the wind is blowing. Batteries can store excess energy for later use. However, they are often costly. While renewable energy presents some challenges, it also offers an environmentally friendly alternative to the greenhouse gas emissions and pollution of fossil fuels. And as advances in technology make renewable energy more accessible, affordable, and efficient, an end to climate change could be within our reach.
All right, guys, that was National Geographic. They were actually given a definition of what green energy is, and I think they were very clear on what it was. They gave some benefits as well, and some of the downsides too. So kind of a really balanced kind of view of what green/renewable energy is. And so I thought it was wise to be able to do that. Now I think it'd be good for us to look at the vision. Now that we know exactly what green energy is, now I thought it'd be wise to unpack is what is the green/renewable energy vision? What's the vision behind it? What is the goal? You hear a lot of rhetoric in the news, but let's unpack it and see exactly what the vision is. I thought it'd be wise to, again, widen that circle, guys, and go right into it. And I think that Vox did a very good, Vox, V as in Victor, OX did a very good job at really unpacking what this is. So, guys, let's go right into Vox real fast, okay? All right, here we go. Let's go right into it.
The state of Vermont has one of the greenest grids in the U.S. 2/3 of their electricity comes from renewable energy sources, like solar, wind, or hydroelectric plants. The current goal is to be at 75% by 2032, which is why it was pretty surprising when a new solar project here was denied. This area doesn't have a lot of people, but it does have plenty of potential for renewable energy. The power plants here, in addition to a regular power supply from Canada, already put about 450 megawatts of electricity onto the grid. And by grid, I mean these power lines. But the grid's capacity is around 450 megawatts. So the grid just wouldn't be able to handle any more power generated here. If we want a greener future in the US, we'll need to build more renewable energy plants. But to actually use that electricity, we'll also need to build more of these.
Okay.
This is a map of where everyone in the continental US lives, the density of each county. Here's New York City, LA, Chicago. And here's where every big power plant is currently. Appropriately, they tend to be where the people are. In Washington, D.C., where I live, we get nearly all our electricity from surrounding states' power plants, mostly nuclear and natural gas. Electricity goes from the power plant through big high-voltage transmission lines to a substation where the electricity is dispersed onto smaller, lower-power distribution lines that send it in.
I got to keep 100 with you. I think Vox is doing a really good job at communicating the vision. So let's keep going.
To my house. Like Vermont, DC also plans to be greener. The goal is to have 100% renewable sources making our electricity by 2032.
Now, again, where they said 100% renewables by 2032. We're in 2022 right now. That's 10 years from now. That's a big ask. Okay. Again, this is the vision.
It's part of a national goal, too. President Biden wants to reduce emissions in the 50% by 2030, with nearly half of U.S. power coming from solar plants by 2050.
Now, that's a big old step up. That's a big step up, but this is the vision.
That means switching out those natural gas plants for wind turbines, coal plants for solar farms. Lowering emissions also means switching from gas cars to electric cars, heating our buildings not with natural gas, but with electric heat pumps, cooking on electric stoves. Basically, we're going to be using a lot more electricity.
That is correct. If you want to go to 100% of renewables, you're using a lot more electricity. Again, this is the vision.
Anywhere from 40 to 100% more than we currently use. So back to the map. If we're going to replace all these polluting energy plants, we can't just build a wind turbine in their place. They need to be where it's, windy. This is a model created by Princeton, mapping out possible places in the continental U.S. where wind and solar projects could, in theory, be built. Aside from some offshore wind farms, it's mostly in the middle of the U.S. Another study found that these states have most of the wind and solar potential, yet the people living there would only make up 30% of the electricity demand. In a decarbonized future, we're going to need to get electricity from here to here. And we're going to move a lot of it. That's where high voltage transmission lines come in.
I think the infrastructure is the most important thing. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but it really...
Now, you hear a lot in the media where they're talking about infrastructure. Rob here is going to unpack what that looks like.
Really is the key.
This is where the U.S. currently has high voltage transmission lines. The Princeton model shows us this is where new lines will need to be built if the U.S. uses all renewable energy by 2050. But it's not a simple process. Every wire in your house has plastic over it because if two electrical lines get too close, But high voltage power lines are the bare active wire, no plastic. They're insulated by the air. Basically, if they're kept far enough apart from each other, it's safe. But they also have to be kept far away from everything, trees included. This is actually how some of the California wildfires were started. Trees coming in contact with the super big high voltage transmission lines. And those are what we'll need more of as we lengthen the distance from energy source to energy need. We'll also need to make many current ones even bigger. Because bigger means more power. Physically, the cables are thicker. The bigger the cable, the more power can run through them. And because they're bigger, they have to be really far apart for insulation and built higher up. It makes them kind of a pain to build, partly because of how large they are, but also how much private land they have to cross.
Very often the developer can get 99% of the landowners to agree, but then there's that last 1%, and that can take forever and can crater the whole thing.
Okay.
So experts say we should start building now, even before we build the plants.
You can do a generation project in a year. The transmission 3 if you're lucky, but it can go over 10. We don't want to do this in a reactive mode where we build a lot of stranded generation. We want to proactively build the transmission to where we know the resources are. And the thing about wind and solar resources is we know where they are.
A greener grid in the US means thinking nationally, building more transmission lines so when it's sunny in Arizona, it can power Chicago. And at night, Illinois wind can power Phoenix. To do that efficiently, the US will need a new interconnected high voltage grid.
Okay.
Princeton found it would take nearly $320 billion in investments in the next 10 years, almost as much as investments in solar and wind plants themselves. Congress is working on an infrastructure bill that contains some funding, but really only a fraction of what's needed.
I'm optimistic about our ability to do it because we have done it before. I am nervous about the execution between legislation, regulation, and industry follow through.
The U.S. is currently on track to have 42% of our energy come from renewables by 2050. If current proposals turn into real policy, we could be closer to 80%. But just making greener electricity isn't enough. We have to be able to move it.
Transmission's important for the clean energy future. We're just not going to decarbonize without it.
So that was Vox, and I think they did a really good job at communicating their vision concerning what they're actually wanting out of green energy. So if you hear a lot of verbiage from politicians or from the media, it is most likely they're talking about the infrastructure, and you keep hearing the word infrastructure, and they're talking about not only generating renewable energies, but also the transition of the energy. And it looks like the vision is from internal U.S. to the outer states because of the land masses there, and which is fine. That is the vision of it. Now, I thought it would be wise for us to actually look at a different perspective. Now, that's the vision, but what's wrong with green/renewable energy? A different perspective. Now, you heard the vision. Let's begin to unpack maybe the holes or the logs in the eyes of those that are looking at this. Okay, and I thought that it'd be wise to invite in another company to do this. Sorry about that, guys. Another company on this. Okay, that would be, let's see here. This perspective is going to let you know exactly what is wrong with this. What's wrong? What people may not be looking at, and I thought it's wise for us to begin to unpack this. So let's go right into that to see exactly what's going on. Let's go right into that real quickly. Okay, here we go.
Heard of unobtainium? It's the magical energy mineral found on the planet Pandora in the movie Avatar. It's a fantasy in a science fiction script. But environmentalists think they found it here on Earth in the form of wind and solar power. They think all the energy we need can be supplied by building enough wind and solar farms and enough batteries. The simple truth is that we can't, nor should we want to, not if our goal is to be good stewards of the planet. To understand why, consider some simple physics realities that aren't being talked about.
Okay.
All sources of energy have limits that can't be exceeded. The maximum rate at which the sun's photons can be converted to electrons is about 33%. Our best solar technology is at 26% efficiency. For wind, the maximum capture is 60%. Our best machines are at 45%. So we're pretty close to wind and solar limits. Despite PR claims about big gains coming, there just aren't any possible. And wind and solar only work when the wind blows and the sun shines, but we need energy all the time.
That's a good point. We need energy all the time. And so if it only works when the wind is blowing, when the sun is out, we got a problem that we have to unpack now. Let's keep going.
The solution, we're told, is to use batteries. Again, physics and chemistry make this very hard to do. Consider the world's biggest battery factory, the one Tesla built in Nevada.
Okay.
It would take 500 years for that factory to make enough batteries to store just 1 day's worth of America's electricity needs.
That's a lot of batteries and a lot of time, guys. A lot of time.
This helps explain why wind and solar currently still supply less than 3% of the world's energy after 20 years and billions of dollars.
That's not a lot. 3% is very little, very minuscule of the energy consumption that is used when it comes to green/renewable energy. That's very little.
And subsidies. Putting aside the economics, if your motive is to protect the environment, you might want to rethink wind, solar, and batteries because, like all machines, they're built from non-renewable materials. Consider some sobering numbers. A single electric car battery weighs about half a ton. Jeez. Fabricating one requires digging up, moving, and processing more than 250 tons of earth somewhere on the planet.
Wow.
Building a single 100-megawatt wind farm can power 75,000 homes requires some 30,000 tons of iron ore and 50,000 tons of concrete, as well as 900 tons of non-recyclable plastics for the huge blades. To get the same power from solar, the amount of cement, steel, and glass needed is 150% greater. Then there's the other minerals needed, including elements known as rare earth metals. With current plans, the world will need an incredible 200 to 2,000% increase in mining for elements such as cobalt, lithium, and dysprosium, to name just a few. Where is all this stuff going to come from? Massive new mining operations, almost none of it in America, some imported from places hostile to America, in some places we all want to protect. Australia's Institute for Sustainable Futures cautions that a global gold rush for energy materials will take miners into remote wilderness areas that have maintained high biodiversity because they haven't yet been disturbed. And who's doing the mining? Well, let's just say that they're not all going to be union workers with union protections. Amnesty International paints a disturbing picture. The marketing of state-of-the-art technologies are a stark contrast to the children carrying bags of rocks. And then the mining itself requires massive amounts of conventional energy, as do the energy-intensive industrial processes needed to.
He's right about that. What's going to power all of the trucks and the bulldozers? Fossil fuels. What's going to power all that?
Refine the materials and then build the wind, solar, battery hardware. Then there's the waste. Wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries have a relatively short life, about 20 years. Conventional energy machines like gas turbines last twice as long. With current plans, the International Renewable Energy Agency calculates that by 2050, the disposal of worn-out solar panels will constitute over double the tonnage of all of today's global plastic waste.
If that is the case, that's bad for the environment, right? Because renewable energy means it's better for the environment than adding pollution. But just the waste alone is adding to the pollution.
Worn-out wind turbines and batteries will add millions of tons more waste. It'll be a whole new environmental challenge.
Yes, it will.
Before we launch history's biggest increase in mining, dig up millions of acres in pristine areas, encourage childhood labor, and create epic waste problems, we might want to reconsider our almost inexhaustible supply of hydrocarbons, the fuels that make our marvelous modern world possible. And technology is making it easier to acquire and cleaner to use them every day. The following comparisons are typical and instructive. It costs about the same to drill one oil well as it does to build one giant wind turbine.
Interesting.
And while that turbine generates the energy equivalent of about 1 barrel of oil per hour, the oil rig produces 10 barrels per hour.
Wow.
It costs less than 50 cents to store a barrel of oil or its equivalent in natural gas, but you need $200 worth of batteries to hold the energy contained in 1 oil barrel.
Wow.
Next time someone tells you that wind, solar, and batteries are the magical solution for all our energy needs, ask them if they have an idea of the cost to the environment. Unobtainium works fine in the movies, but we don't live in the movies. We live in the real world. I'm Mark Mills, Senior Fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Prager University.
So, guys, I thought it would be wise to unpack that a little bit more. He actually talked about a lot of stuff that that in the previous video was not even disclosed concerning the cost of this. And a lot of the times we don't hear the cost. I heard a lot of theory in the vision, and the vision is fine because it is a vision. That's okay. But if what he's saying is actually correct, there's a environmental cost when it comes to disposing. There's a financial cost when it comes to just the investment into the infrastructure. And even when we get to that point, what he's saying is we don't even have enough copper or raw minerals to even accomplish the vision of what they're talking about. If that is the case, guys, that is a problem. Now, you may say, well, Dale, can we go a little deeper? And that's fine. We sure can. I thought that it would be wise for us to bring in someone on CNBC. They actually had somebody on in August, and it was the CEO of Barrick, and he talks about one of those precious minerals, which is copper. And I want you to listen to exactly what he said about this, okay? Now, we've heard the vision. We've heard the counter perspective. Now, let's get into the real world, okay? Into the real world. Let's get into this. Give me one sec here. Bring it up. And we're almost done, guys. And thank you so much for your time. But I thought it's wise for us to begin to unpack this a little bit more on this. Okay, here we go. And we're going to share it. Boom. All right, here we go, guys. This is CNBC. Let's go.
Commodity prices across the board are far from their 52-week highs. In fact, copper down 30%, silver down 28%, and gold down almost 14%. Let's talk about this and the future of mining. Joining us on a first on CNBC interview to talk about it is Barrick Gold President and CEO Mark Bristow. They reported their quarterly numbers this morning with slightly better than expected top and bottom line results. Mark, thanks for joining us. I know everybody wants to talk about gold, but I want to talk about copper first because we've got this big Senate spending package, which looks like it's going to pass the House.
Yeah.
A lot of money for clean energy. The one thing about clean energy is you need a lot of copper. You need to build out charging stations, new utility grids. If this gets done, how bullish could this be for long-term copper demand? And do we have the copper?
Listen to his answer.
Yeah, good morning. Well, you've got it right. You've hit the nail on the head. We don't have enough copper. And again, you've seen the copper price come off because it's always short term. And what we as miners have to do is look long term. And we just don't.
This guy is the mining company, and he just said we don't have enough copper. That's a problem.
Have the copper to ensure that we can support the vision of being a greener planet into the future.
Notice he said vision. Okay, vision. So you have the vision. He's actually bringing it to the real world. Let's go.
Yeah, and where's it going to come from, Mark? I mean, do you have the resources? Do you have the known reserves of enough copper? Or are you going to have to go out and find more? In other words, I hate to say it, but clean energy takes a lot of mining.
It does.
Exactly. I mean, that's the irony of the whole thing. It needs to be responsible mining, of course, but we've got to go and look for it. And again, if you look at the inventory, as far as the portfolio of the big miners, we don't have very few specialist copper miners. And as you know, Barrick has, back in 2019 with the merger of Randgold, committed to grow its copper portfolio. And we've just announced a big project in Pakistan, which is the development of Reko Diq, one of the largest undeveloped copper and gold deposits in the world. But it takes time to bring big copper mines into production, and we don't have those. And on top of that, we have the challenges in South America, particularly in Chile, with the change in the outlook towards mining and the heavy fiscal legislation that's coming the mining way in Chile.
He just said, guys, that there's not enough copper, number one, and number two, it's going to take a heavy amount of mining to get done. And number three, you have Chile. It's kind of it's not really sold on the mining perspective, and he said if we have to go find it. So if that's the case, we don't even know if we actually have it. And so this is the real world now. This is an actual mining company. This is what they do for a living. Now, he did talk about a copper deposit here and there, which is fine, which is what they kind of discovered, if I heard him correctly. But what I heard him say distinctively is there's not enough copper. So the question is, out of the raw materials that was said on the PragerU video, which I think was very much laid out, just like the Vox video was, do we have enough of those materials? If the answer is no, we got a problem, a big problem now, because now the vision is not making sense in reality. Does that make sense? Now, last video, guys, and thank you so much for your time, guys. Now, this is what I call here is, can green / renewable energy work? Is it sustainable? Again, a proof of concept. Well, I thought it'd be wise for us to bring in John Stossel. Man, he actually did a phenomenal interview with one of the big proponents, and you're going to see her name in the video, of renewable / green energies, and they go kind of back and forth. And he also then invites someone on that talks about fossil fuels, so you get a good balanced view on this proof of concept. So let's get into that, guys, and then we'll be done, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Here we go. We're gonna share that real quickly. Boom. There we go. And let's go. Boom. All right, here we go, guys. Let's get into this thing.
Record to record. Energy prices are doubling, tripling,
straining the pocketbooks of struggling American families.
Worse, some places are running out of power.
We could soon see the worst worldwide energy crisis since the 1970s.
A big reason? The world's attempt to switch to cleaner, renewable energy.
We are going to get rid of fossil fuels.
There we
We'll
go.
replace fossil fuels, we're told, with solar and wind power.
We can't wait any longer.
The sooner we can get committed.
This is Joanna Newman. She's a senior director for Environmental America. She's a proponent of green energy. She's very much behind it.
Johanna Newman's environmental group says it's convincing national leaders to go 100% renewable. 100% would be a very big increase. Now we get 12%. The vast majority of America's energy still comes from oil, natural gas, and coal. California got to 18%, but they have to pay almost twice what the rest of us pay for electricity.
That's in line with what PragerU just said concerning the cost. It's going up. This is California. Let's go.
And in Europe,
power plants are desperately trying to buy coal because wind energy hasn't performed.
Europe has gone back to coal.
You're right. They're, cranking up some of these old coal-fired power plants, and it's bad for the environment. It's bad for public health.
Coal.
But the only reason why they would crank up coal again after being on wind energy is because it didn't work. So they're going back to what they know is working. And her counter to that is it's not clean. Let's continue it.
The filthiest fuel of all is now the primary electricity source in the country where Newman was born.
Wow.
Germany had been a leader in renewable energy,
Yes,
but their reliance on wind and sun, plus their closing of nuclear plants, led to Germany not only burning more coal, but becoming more dependent on Russia. Now, Germans pay triple what Americans pay for.
So what I kind of see, guys, is this here is Germany, proof of concept, transitioning from went over to wind and solar energy. Okay, did not work. They reverted back to coal, and now they're actually buying oil from Russia, which we already know. And now you see a significant cost in electricity, energy, than what we are paying. Okay, and they went back to coal. Now here we go
for electricity.
Saying that renewables are not yet powering our utility grid is like critiquing a 2-year-old for not being able to run a marathon.
Oh, a 2-year-old? America's solar and wind subsidies are 44 years old.
We have some tax support for clean renewable energy, but we also prop up polluting industries in remarkable ways.
We're in agreement. The subsidies should go, but the fossil fuel subsidies are a tiny fraction of what you guys get.
How we spend our taxes ought to be a reflection of our values. And Americans, by and large, love renewable energy. They want to see more of it.
We do like renewable energy.
You said you have solar panels on your rooftop?
I do.
How is that experience going for you?
Half the time they don't work in the winter when the sun is low.
Wow. This is a proof of concept, man. And let's keep going. This is the real world. Okay, let's go.
Get nothing from them.
Right. So solar panels work great when the sun is shining.
But what kind of energy solution is that? Sunshine and wind are not always available.
When the sun goes down and solar descends, the winds pick up and offshore wind, gets cranked up.
The wind doesn't always come up when the sun goes down.
Offshore wind is remarkably consistent.
No, it isn't.
In the North Sea, winds have stopped blowing.
Wow. That's the problem with renewables. When you invest in them,
you're not replacing coal plants. You're not replacing gas plants because at any given time, the sun can go near zero.
Alex Epstein.
I mean, this is a proof. If this is a proof of concept with one consumer, and I'm gonna unpack that in a second, guys. But that was an interesting exchange between someone that's a proponent of green energy and someone that has tried it, and they are feeling the effects of it being inefficient. And he brought up Germany as well from a country standpoint, how they were proponents of green/renewable energy, transitioned over to it, and it didn't work. It was inefficient, and then they went back over to coal, and then now buying more oil from Russia. I mean, proof of concept.
Epstein leads a lonely campaign to convince people that fossil fuels are moral because human flourishing depends on them.
3 billion people in the world still use less electricity than a typical American refrigerator. Are we going to allow them to have a modern life? Because that's going to depend on fossil fuels.
Renewables are clearly better.
We'll solve renewables problems, she says, by doing things like storing energy in batteries.
By building up battery storage, we can keep the lights on 24/7 with 100% renewable energy.
This is just a total fantasy, which is why nobody has done it anywhere ever.
But they will.
Based on what?
Technology.
I mean, there's just no basis for this whatsoever. With Elon Musk's best battery prices, it would cost multiples of global GDP to come up with this imaginary thing.
You say unaffordable, but if we're going to save the planet from climate change, we need to pay more.
We can master almost any conceivable climate change.
Mastering it's the better idea, he says. Adjust where we grow different crops. Build dikes to hold water back like Holland has.
We have 100 million people who essentially live below sea level already. Our ability to master sea levels so far outweighs any conceivable sea level rise that we don't have to be worried about it in any existential way.
Activists talk about the climate crisis.
Yeah. This is what would happen to the sea level in Florida.
But most scientists don't buy disaster claims like those. The models used by the Biden administration show that even if the climate warms 2 degrees, dealing with that will likely cost society just a fraction of our income.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Let's keep going.
Trail of destruction.
even if hurricane power rises. It hasn't so far, by the way. Fossil fuels help reduce their harm. This is the amazing untold story of fossil fuels and climate change. Deaths from climate disasters have dropped sharply.
We have a 98% decline in climate-related disaster deaths over the last 100 years.
Fewer deaths because cheap fossil fuels heat homes when it's freezing, power machines that build stronger buildings, and pump water during droughts.
We have this amazing productive ability. That's the only reason we experience the planet as livable.
Global warming is a threat, and fossil fuels make it worse. But until we have some miracle battery or some other amazing invention, we need fossil fuels.
I agree.
Poor people need the most.
It's criminally ignored that there are billions of people who are poor and who will not become wealthy if they don't have low-cost, reliable energy, and that's going to require more fossil fuel, not less.
All right, guys. That was a very good discussion that Mr. Fossil actually unpacked. Very balanced, and it gave two different perspectives, which is good. And you had a proof of concept for him personally, as well as from a country perspective in Germany. And God, it doesn't, in my honest opinion, it doesn't look good for the green/renewable energy argument, vision, because I don't think that there's a proof of concept yet when it comes to that. And so I always say, what's the counter move? Well, the counter move is continue to fine tune the vision before dollars follow it. As an investor in companies and real estate, whenever someone comes to me and asks me for either equity or debt to invest in their company or to buy a said property, whether it be a house or an apartment complex or even new construction, I'm always asking for a proof of concept, because I want to know that you know what you're doing. I hear your vision, but have you done this before? And if so, at what level? And for what we have seen, I've seen the vision of green and renewable energy. It sounds great, but when you look at the cost to the environment, the cost of dollars, and then you look at actual a person, John Stossel, actually a proponent of green energy, actually tried it out. And when you begin to engage with someone that's a proponent of green energy, and she was like, "How you enjoying it?" He was like, "It basically it's horrible. It didn't work half the time." You know what I'm saying? And then in the winter time, it's even worse. And then she talks about how the wind from the coast can come in and trigger on the wind turbine. She's like, "No, it doesn't." And then you actually had someone talk about how winds are not blowing from the coast, which is something. And then you look at Germany. I mean, Germany tried to transition, and now they're back to coal. And so the counter move is this here, guys. It's very simple. We can continue to fine tune the vision of green energy and renewables, but not at the cost of transitioning completely away from what's dependable, what's provable, which is fossil fuels and natural gas. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Completely transitioning away and forcing the transition, to me, is not a wise thing, because we have evidence that it does not work at the level that people want it to work. Okay. And so I think it's wise to actually have a proof of concept before dollars are invested into this vision that has not been proven from a micro standpoint, and then from a macro standpoint. We just saw an exchange from a micro and macro standpoint to where it didn't bode well for the green/renewable energy vision. It didn't. So I would say continue to refine, take care of the bottlenecks in the vision. And once you kind of iron those out, we can then step two, do a proof of concept from a small standpoint, maybe a subdivision or a couple of homes initially first, then the city. It's a couple of homes first, then the subdivision, then a section of the city, then another section of the city. Then you graduate to the city, then you graduate to the county, then to another county, then to the state, and then to the nation. It sounds like what I'm hearing is there's a transition right over to the nation. And that doesn't make any fiscal or even common sense. And my fear is that we're going to experience the exact same situation that Germany did. And but we're so rich in fossil fuels and gas. Let's not forsake what we're wealthy in for a vision that has not been proven yet. So, guys, that's my thoughts on it real quickly. And I would say transition to what? We don't have a what yet. There's nothing been proven yet at all. There's nothing tangible to transition over to. Until the vision is tested, it cannot be proven to be authentic. But you have to be wise on how you begin to roll out that vision. Okay, guys. But guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope this was beneficial. I hope it was informative. Again, my whole thing is I don't want anything to do with as far as political. This is not a political discussion. This is a financial common sense discussion. Let's lean in, reason together. Before you leave, guys, take that picture for your mama now, because I do look better than you. Now holla at your partner. Peace, guys. Starting the business, one of the most important things is the name, which shakes hands with the brand. I was reading John 3:16. That's when the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, 316 count. We are a real estate development and finance company. Obviously, the advice that I would give to somebody that is looking to start their own business, don't be afraid to jump out there. Don't be afraid to be mentored by someone that may know more than you may know, because business is a team sport. For the first 2 or 3 years, it was a little bit of a struggle because you're trying to find your footing in the real estate marketplace. Once I found my niche, it took about 3 to 5 years to go from zero to right now. We manage probably around like 15 to 20 million dollars worth of real estate. The goal is never the destination; it's the journey. I think Kobe Bryant said that. What made him so great was he said, "I never focused on winning the 5 championships. I focused on the journey to winning the 5 championships. Mastering skills throughout the journey, I will naturally automatically get to the destination. Automatically." I am Liddell Buggs with 316 Capital.